Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant evening to you wherever you may be. This is Comfortably Zoned Radio, and you're listening to Dodgers Baseball, a tale of two cities, from Brooklyn to Los Angeles. I'm your host, Peter Trunk, and my co-hosts are Linda Wilson and Boathouse Bernie Rose. Linda, how you doing today?
Doing well, thank you.
All right, and Bernie?
Very well, thank you.
Okay.
Hope to get a good show going here.
Okay, we're going to talk tonight about Buzzie Bavasi. Buzzie Bavasi was the general manager for the Dodgers from 1951 to 1968. In those 17 seasons, he won 8 pennants and 4 world championships. That's a pretty damn good record when you look at it on paper. He also had 2 sons. Buzzie had 2 sons who became general managers in the major leagues, which is unheard of, I think. He founded Vero Beach, in a way, the facility for Dodger Town. That was one of his claims to fame. And after the O'Malley versus Branch Rickey war went down, and O'Malley came out standing, he named Buzzie Bavasi his general manager in November, on November the 3rd, to be exact, 1950. So in the winter of 50-51, Buzzie Bavasi, our man of the hour tonight, became general manager of the Dodgers. I'll give it up to Linda. Linda, want to start us off with some stuff about Buzzie Bavasi?
Yes, well, the first memory I have of him is from back in 1969 when the Padres were an expansion team, and he was the general manager. Of course, at that time I was pretty young, and I didn't really know what a general manager did, but I knew that he used to be with the Dodgers. And over the years, he was with, both the Padres and the Angels, and just learning the history of the Dodgers, I could see what a big part he was in building those 4 World Series winners from the 50s to the 60s. So,
yeah.
most of my memories of him are kind of from reading about what he did before. But I did have one time where I was actually at a forum in which he appeared, and that was at the San Diego Hall of Champions in 2005. And Jerry Coleman, Buzzie Bavasi, and Duke Snider all appeared together to discuss baseball in New York and California, because they had all had a part in both. And it was one of the most entertaining, fascinating forums I'd ever been to. It was great. Buzzie has some great stories.
When you say a forum, what do you mean by that exactly?
Well,
is it a daytime thing? Is it a nighttime thing? Is it a 3-day thing?
It was a luncheon. That's what they called it. They used to call it Sports at Lunch Forum. And I don't even know that that the Hall of Champions does that anymore. But they did it a lot in the mid-2000s. They would have a monthly Sports at Lunch Forum is what they called it. And that just basically the people that were on that particular forum would discuss, the things that they remembered in common, and they would take some questions from the people in attendance. So it was pretty entertaining, just talking about everything from Brooklyn to the Coliseum, the early days in the Coliseum and Dodger Stadium, and then him talking about, of course, his career with the Padres and Angels.
So it was, correct me if I'm wrong, was it like leaning towards San Diego Padres and not the Dodgers, or what?
No, it wasn't. It was more an overall, yes. The three of the, Coleman, Snider, and Bavasi all shared memories going back to their early days in baseball in the 40s. And then they kind of covered the ground from, the glory days in New York, and then they talked about how they all ended up in Southern California. And Snider, of course, had, roots here in Southern California, and Jerry Coleman had his in Northern California. So they talked a little bit about PCL days as well. But it was just very interesting overall perspective to hear these three guys.
Jerry Coleman, besides being a World War II hero, and a fantastic second baseman for the New York Yankees, he teamed with Phil Rizzuto at the Keystone. He was if I'm not mistaken, the play-by-play announcer for the Padres for many years.
Yes, he was let's see, I think it was 1974. So for a good part of their existence, and then he only died, I think, 2 years ago. So yeah, he was
Jerry Coleman. Jerry Coleman is known for. He's known for many, many things. One of the funny things that Jerry Coleman is known for is when he first started announcing baseball games for the San Diego Padres, he said he wanted to inform the fans that there was action in the San Diego bullpen. Now, I don't remember exactly who was warming up, but he said so-and-so is throwing up in the Padres bullpen.
Right, it was
That's
Rich
where he said it.
Yeah.
Throwing
Rich
up.
Bolton is throwing up in the bullpen, right.
There you go. That's a classic. That's a classic.
Yes, he had so many Colemanisms that they loved to talk about. Yeah, he had so many that Padre fans just love them. They recite their favorite Colemanisms.
Yeah,
so anyway,
we do that here. We do that here on the East Coast with Ralph Kiner.
Kiner,
who was the Hall of Fame home run hitter for the Pittsburgh Pirates. He announced for the Mets for many, many years, and he would say such things as, on this Father's Day, I want to wish all those fathers out there a happy birthday.
Yeah, I remember
things like that. That was only one of them. Duke Snider was affiliated with the San Diego Padres for a while, wasn't he?
Yes, he was play-by-play in the very early years before he went to Montreal.
I think he also coached during spring training. He would be on the field in his Padre uniform. I have pictures of Snider in a Padres uniform. Yeah. But once the game began, he changed back into his muff tie and went up to the booth. But he was in their payroll. Bernie, you have anything you want to say about Buzzie Bavasi?
Well, sure. He took over the year I was born, and I'm 17 when his last year with the Dodgers, before he went to the Padres in '69. But so it just seemed, as I recall, there was all those years growing up being a Dodger fan since I always say 3 years old because I have a picture of myself in the Dodgers uniform, a Brooklyn Dodgers uniform when I was 3. I'm not sure where that picture is, but so for as long as I can remember, they were my team. When they moved away, like I mentioned, I stayed with them, and so he was there the whole time, until now. And I just figured this guy knew what the hell he was doing, I mean,
sure did.
They won 8 pennants, and also with a little better luck in '51 and '62, it would have been 10.
And in 50, he wasn't.
And they had a playoff with the Braves too.
True.
That's 3 other pennants they could have won. But those 2 with the Giants, man, in the 9th inning they lost of Game 3 both times. But anyway, I mean, and he was instrumental in signing Gilliam, Padres, Drysdale, Koufax, Charlie Neal, Don Zimmer. And then later, when they made the move, to Tommy and Willie Davis and Fairley and Frank Howard and Roseboro and Maury Wills. And he was instrumental in bringing in Magley and Wally Moon and Bill Scourin and Claude Osteen and Lou Johnson and Phil Regan. All these people I just named helped them win a pennant or a World Series.
That's a lot of names.
That's
a lot of names. And they're not incidental names either.
No.
They helped the Dodgers in many ways. Yeah, that's a hell of a legacy right there.
Isn't it? I mean.
Yes, it is.
So, I mean, I can't really remember any of the bad things that might have happened, like some bad trades or things like that. But you got to figure for the most part. Go ahead.
I'll tell you something funny. Bavasi sold Al Santorini to St. Louis, and then he sold Al Ferrara to Cincinnati, and then he sold Ed Spezio to the White Sox, and he gets a phone call, Bavasi does, from his 81-year-old mother at the time, and she says, "Am I next?" and hangs the phone up. And he calls her back. And says, "Ma, what do you mean am I next? What are you talking about?" She said, "You just sold 3 Italians in a row. I figured I was next."
That's hilarious.
Yeah, that is funny. And one trade that the Dodgers didn't make, or transaction, I should say, was a very, very infamous one. And I say that only because I haven't read this in too many places. I think I read this like 10 years ago somewhere on the internet, and then I read it tonight while perusing a little book written by Bavasi in 1987 called Off the Record. In 1951, a fellow named Carpenter, who owned a multimillionaire, who owned the Philadelphia Phillies, called Bavasi, and he offered him, get this now, $650,000. This is 1951.
Yeah.
$650,000, 5 Phillies, non-starters, bench warmers. $650,000, 5 Phillies for any 2 of the following 3 Dodgers: Gil Hodges, Duke Snider, and Roy Campanella.
Wow.
Bavasi says, "I got to talk it over with O'Malley." He goes to O'Malley and he says, "Walter, how much money do we have in the bank?" Meaning the Dodgers.
Right.
Walter said, $50,000. We got $50,000. Why? Who do you want to buy? He said, "I don't want to buy anybody. I just got off the phone with the owner of the Phillies, Carpenter, who offered us $650,000 for any 2 of and 5 ball players for any 2 of the 3 among Gil Hodges, Duke Snider, and Roy Campanella." He said Walter O'Malley's cigar fell out of his mouth, looked at him and said, in one day, we could have $650,000 in the bank. And Bavasi says that, this is what he claims, Bavasi says to Walter O'Malley, if we win the pennant next year, meaning 1952, we will keep those players and we will make the $600,000 from the winning the pennant in the World Series. I vote that we don't do the deal. And O'Malley slept on it for a couple of nights, came back and said, "You're probably right. Let's not do the deal." And he called Carpenter back and said, "No go. Sorry." But imagine that, $650,000 grand, 5 players, and Snider, Hodges, Campanella, 2 of those 3 would have been Phillies at the end of the 1951 season.
Boy, would that have been a horror show.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Wouldn't have happened. Oh yeah.
Bernie, can you tell us anything? Can you tell us anything about Buzzie Bavasi and his dealings with Koufax and Drysdale in 1966? Or do you have another story you want to tell us?
Well, no.
If you have another story, that's fine. That's fine.
Well, it was just more information, really. Yeah, if you do, please. I don't have any information on it. I certainly remember the holdout,
okay.
And nobody was making more than $100,000 then. Mantle, Mays, nobody. And Koufax and Drysdale, I think they were already making that, and everybody just assumed it was going to be the same thing, and they held out.
I think Ted Williams,
if I recall right.
Ted Williams and Stan Musial, Ted Williams and Stan Musial were making over 100 in '66. I'm not sure if Mays was or not, but the way his book reads, and this is the first time I've read it. Koufax and Drysdale were holding out as a team together for a 3-year contract worth $1.5 million. Now, I never heard that before the book. And O'Malley and Bavasi scoffed at it. The two ball players said, "Well, we'll pitch in Mexico or Japan." And O'Malley said, "No, you won't, because of the reserve clause. You need written permission from me to play in Japan." So they said, "Okay, we'll become movie actors. We'll go into TV and movies." Walter said, "Great, go ahead." And when they hung up the phone, O'Malley said to Bavasi, "What the hell are we going to do?" This is the spring of 1966. Bavasi said, "Listen, this is great press for us. This is phenomenal press. These guys do not need 8 weeks of spring training. We can let this go on and on. We'll get press every single day. It'll sell tickets. Sooner or later, they're going to give in." And, of course, this is Bavasi telling the story, and he knows the end of the story, so he's making this a very colorful type of story and a very pro-Bavasi type of thing. But he claims that they went until 2 weeks before opening day. Bavasi said he knew that Drysdale worked out every day and that he was in great shape and he wouldn't need the 8 weeks. He could do it in 2 weeks. And that Koufax, even though he did not work out, was the type of guy who never gained a pound in the wintertime, and he was confident that Koufax could come back and have a great season. Well, he brings them he gets a phone call. He says that he calls Koufax and Drysdale at times when he knew. Now, you tell me how he knew this, but he says, "I called him at times where I knew they wouldn't be home. So I would leave them voicemail, and then they would call me back, and I would say to the press, without lying, they're calling me every day. Drysdale and Koufax are calling me every day. It won't be long now before we sign them up." And sooner or later, he brings them into the office and he says to them, "Okay, look, you're gonna sign up. We're gonna give Sandy $125,000, and we're gonna give Don $115,000. And Koufax goes, wait a minute. You said you're going to give us both the same." So Bavasi goes to the secretary, says, "Okay, draw up 2 contracts for $117,500 each." Koufax goes, no, forget I said that. So he winds up giving Koufax $125 and Drysdale $115. Drysdale goes 13-16 that year. And Koufax, his final year, goes 27-9.
Yeah.
And that's the story about the Koufax-Drysdale holdout, written by Buzzie Bavasi. Now,
well,
whether
of course,
you believe all of that 100%, it's a colorful story.
But in that story, he's right. It was all over the press the whole time.
Even here in the East, it was. Yeah.
Spring training this year, the LA Times, Bill Shankin had written an article about the 50th anniversary of the holdout. Very interesting. They used a lot of the old Times reports from the time that was going on. It was really interesting to follow along and see how things have changed over the years.
I'll say.
Yeah.
Change just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was something else.
Players, if you don't mind, Bernie, could you read off some of those names that Bavasi brought to the Dodgers over the years again for me?
Right. Well, he started, after Ricky was gone, and O'Malley.
By the way, Ricky invited him to go. Ricky gave him an envelope at 215 Montague Street, the Dodgers offices. Ricky handed Bavasi an envelope and said, "Buzzie, open this and read it tomorrow. I'm leaving." And he leaves. And the next day, Bavasi opens up the envelope and says, I'm gone. I'm on my way to Pittsburgh to be general manager of the Pirates, and I want you to come along, and I'm offering you, and he offered him some salary, I don't know, $30,000 or whatever like that. And Bavasi was stunned. He was stunned not only that Ricky had left, but he was stunned that he offered for him to go. He had just bought a house in Scarsdale with his wife, Yvette, and he didn't want to move, so he turned down the generous offer. But anyway, name some of those names again for me, please, if you would.
Well, yeah, so he started, well, they had a very good, extensive scouting system, player development system, and the names that he started getting in from them was Jim Gilliam, Johnny Padres, Don Drysdale, Sandy Koufax, Charlie Neal, and Don Zimmer. And that was before the move to California.
Exactly.
Then he started to churn out players such as Tommy Davis, Willie Davis, Ron Fairley, Frank Howard, Johnny Roseboro, Maury Wills. And then he made strategic acquisitions of veterans to help win pennants and World Series. He brought in Sal Magley to help him win the pennant in 56, Wally Moon to help him win the pennant in 59, Bill Moose Scourin to help them go all the way in 63, Claude Osteen for 65 and 66. That's two pennants and one.
But wait a minute, hold it. To get, if memory serves, in order to get Claude Osteen, he traded Frank Howard.
That could be. I don't really remember how Frank.
I believe he did. That was the deal. Howard went for Claude Osteen, Washington, and
that's
Howard
a big trade. Yeah, that's
Howard
a big
hit
trade.
40 home runs every year for about 4 or 5 years after that, and maybe also team and hit 300 and drove in over 100 runs every year. That was a little shaky, that trade. I'm not saying Claude Osteen didn't contribute well to the Dodger pitching staff. I'm just saying Frank Howard was when he was Frank Howard, when he got traded away from L.A. He became the Frank Howard. That's
true. That is true.
Yeah.
But Claude Osteen had a couple of good years, those two pennant-winning years, and Lou Johnson was there for those same 2 years, brought in, and Phil Regan for the 66 pennant, the Vulture.
Right.
And, he brought in Ron Paranowski, who was there through 67, I think. And, he had that one year he was 16-3, I think. And, he was the mainstay out of the bullpen.
Yep.
They didn't even call him closers back then, but he was the guy. And
I remember seeing Paranowski walk in from the bullpen at the Polo Grounds. Now, the Polo Grounds bullpens were in fair territory, in right center field and left center field.
Amazing.
Walter Olson went to the mound, called in Paranowski against the Mets, and I see this guy come in. I could not believe my eyes when he handed his jacket to the bat boy and just walked onto the mound. I said to myself, this guy is Ron Paranowski? I couldn't believe it. He looked from where I was in the stands. I was a teenager. He looked about 5'1" and about 250 pounds. He was a little round circle of a guy.
Yeah,
with a
weird
cap on and a
physique.
glove on his
he did.
A real fat guy. I said, how is this guy 16-3? Or whatever he was at the time. He was like, mowing him down, boy. He was mowing him down. I tell you, it was crazy. It was crazy. You're used to seeing guys like Koufax and Drysdale, these big, tall, lean, athletic-looking guys. When you saw a guy like Paranowski, you scratch your head. Who is this guy?
Yeah.
Who is this guy? It's funny. You said that he got them Lou Johnson. That was because who the heck got hurt? Somebody got hurt, and the Dodgers needed a left fielder. I'm sorry?
I can't. Yeah, no, I know. I remember the story.
Yeah.
Right. He kind of stepped in.
The regular Dodger outfielder got hurt, so he brought in Lou Johnson. So Lou the top of Lou Johnson's ear the top of his left ear is in his stomach. You know that, right? Lou Johnson was in a knife fight, and the top of his left ear was sliced off. And in order to keep it warm, the doctors, to get it back to 98.6, so they could sew it back onto his top of his ear, they put it underneath the skin of his stomach, in his midsection. And of course, he never went back for the operation. So all the rest of his life, he had the top of his ear in his stomach. The other story about Lou Johnson is when the Dodgers first got him, when Bavasi first brought Lou Johnson to the Dodgers were on the road, and Bavasi gets a bill from a clothing store when the Dodgers get back home for $360. And the name on the bill is Lou Johnson, Los Angeles Dodgers. So he calls him into his office at Dodger Stadium, and he says, "What's this bill here? $360." And Lou Johnson goes, "Oh, my wife and daughter needed clothes to travel. We're not making any money down in the minor leagues, and I had to buy them. I had to buy my daughter a couple of dresses, and my wife a couple of dresses." And Buzzie Bavasi goes, "Oh, are they 42 long?" The bill was for 2 silk suits that he bought for himself. And Lou was a character, I'll tell you that. He did help the team. I'm still banging my head. Who was the Dodger that got hurt that he had to replace? Oh, man, that's going to drive me nuts. And when I'll think about it as soon as we hang up the phone. As soon as we go off the air, I'll think about it.
I was going to say it. I have a story about Lou Johnson when.
Go ahead.
Back in 2005, first time I ever went to Vero Beach for spring training. Some friends and we all kind of decided to go to a couple of Dodger games on the road as well as games at Homeland Stadium. So we went to a Dodgers-Cardinals game in Jupiter, and when we got there, we found out that the game was sold out. So my friend looks at me and says, "Well, what do we do?" And out of nowhere, here comes Lou Johnson across the parking lot asking us, "Do you have tickets for today's game?" And no, we just found out they're sold out. He says, "Well, come and sit with me." So we went right in and waved his pass or whatever and sat there with me. And we just had a great time, watching the game and talking. It was so fun.
Isn't that a nice story? That's a nice story.
It's a nice guy, yeah.
Isn't that a nice story? How many years had he been retired by then?
Well, I'm thinking probably close to, this was in 2005. Didn't he retire in early 70s, late 60s?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, he was.
So you're right.
He was retired for quite a while.
Yeah, he had been, and he still works for the Dodgers organization and their community.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so he is he's very active and visible at a lot of Dodger events. So every now and then, I'll see him at some event and I'll remind him. I remember the time you got us into spring training. He's such a nice guy. He's so personable with all the fans. Great.
It's a very nice story. The Dodgers, for all the things that they're always castigated for, have been known throughout the years to hire ex-players so they get their time in for their pension. They even did it with Sandy Amoros. Sandy Amoros had his legs amputated, and the Dodgers signed him, or at least one leg amputated, and the Dodgers signed him for 30 days so he would get his pension. And they did that with a lot of their ball players.
Yeah, I remember hearing stuff like that. Sure.
Yep. They would give them a job, and they would fill in the days if they were short 100 days or short 200 days or short 50 days, 30 days, whatever the case may be. They would bring them back, and they would fill out their pension requirement, which I think is a hell of a nice thing, a really hell of a nice thing. And a couple of shows ago, we mentioned the 1959 exhibition game for Roy Campanella, again, the Dodgers versus the Yankees. Do you remember talking about that?
Not really, but I'll take your word for it.
No, when everybody held up the lighters, remember 93,000?
Oh, yeah, I remember you guys talking about that. Yeah.
At the L.A. Coliseum, all the people held up their matches or their lighters or whatever.
Yeah, we did.
Campanella, 93,000 people. The Dodgers, after Campanella had his terrible, tragic accident, the Dodgers continued to pay his salary. Mm-hmm. Now I don't know for how many years they did that, but Campy's salary was about estimated to be about $33,000, and Walter O'Malley paid that for a number of years. Don't ask me, don't pinpoint exactly how many years he did it, but I know he did it for a few years. And that exhibition game against the Yankees in 1959 at the Coliseum, the Dodgers share, the home team gets a share and the visitors get a share. And since there were 93,000 people there was a pretty big share. The Dodgers gave Campanella $50,000 out of their share. And Buzzie Bavasi, tonight's subject, went to the Yankees front office and asked them if they would make a donation from their share. And the Yankees laughed at him and did not give, as Bavasi says, they wouldn't give me 15 cents out of their share.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that's the story. One last thing about the Coliseum. I bet neither one of you Dodger files know this. This is a great trivia question. Dodgers played at the Coliseum in 58, played there in 59, played there in 60, 61, okay? Never sold beer at the Coliseum. It was illegal. No beer was sold at the Coliseum.
That I didn't. You're right, I didn't know that.
I didn't know it either until today.
Well, I'll tell you when they had the game.
Well, that's a crime.
That exhibition game in 2008 that the Dodgers and
Red Sox 115,000 people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I was at that game, and believe me, they were selling beer then.
Oh yeah. I'm talking about back in the 50s.
I know.
Yeah. Back then.
Well, the Red Sox are coming to L.A. this weekend. I know they'll be selling beer there.
Yes, they will.
Boy. That's going to be a big one,
That'll
boy.
Be a series. Oh, yeah.
One of the Dodgers,
like the 27 Yankees. The Red Sox are going to score 1,000 runs this year. The bats are crazy.
They are scoring, no question about it.
One of the promotional items this weekend is a pair of blue socks with Dodger logo.
That's funny.
There you go. Should be the Los Angeles Blue Sox, huh?
They're not going to need anything. They're not going to need any giveaways or special promotions to fill that ballpark against the Red Sox. Believe me.
No, and I'm sure they wouldn't. But it's just like a clever thing that I'm sure somebody thought, well, let's do this. It's a tie-in,
Yeah.
So anyway, before we get back into some more of the player development that Bavasi was involved in, I'm thinking it was Tommy Davis is your left fielder who got hurt.
That's who it was. It was Tommy.
Okay.
I don't know if that was the year he wrecked his ankle or was it his Achilles? I think it was his ankle.
It was a fracture, yeah.
And that was, boy, did I hate that. He was such a great hitter, and
was he?
He was Tommy Davis. Has another Dodger led the league in hitting since Tommy Davis? What's the answer to that question?
That's a good question. That's a very good question.
I know the answer.
I don't think so.
The answer is no. You are right.
Are you sure?
Oh.
Sure about that?
I'm pretty damn sure. Piazza.
Why? Who are you thinking of, Linda?
I'm going to check on that, but okay.
Did you have a name bouncing around?
I didn't look it up. I'm just talking from the top of my head, but I'm saying the answer is no.
Okay.
Okay.
You might be right. Okay.
And
or as
that's
Billy
amazing.
Joel, as Billy Joel said, you might be right, you might be wrong.
And I may be crazy, but
we
also,
know that we know.
That's a great point, and you should look it up, but I'm pretty sure that's the answer. I know Piazza finished second at least once, and there may have been some others that I just can't recall, but I'm pretty certain that no one has led the league since Tommy Davis, which is incredible. That's 50-something years.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Plus, he was a right-handed hitter.
Yeah.
Right-handed hitters, that's tough to win a batting championship.
And it was, what was it, 355, 362? He had 2 years in a row, ridiculous. 350, 360, yeah.
It was
unbelievable.
Number. It was a crazy number. And he had like 150 RBIs.
Yes, he did. He did.
That was crazy.
And he didn't win the MVP, I don't believe.
Those numbers were Ruthian.
Yeah,
150 RBIs with a 350 average.
And he was never the same after that injury. It was a terrible injury. You know, I don't know, maybe they could have handled it better today. Right.
I remember when the Mets got him, I thought he was going to set the world on fire. Just like I thought George Foster was going to set the world on fire when the Mets got him. When the Mets get people, they die off. They don't do anything. Anyway.
Well, the Dodgers have some good records in that regard too.
Yeah.
But of course, Tommy had a great quote about Darryl Strawberry. Do you?
Oh, really?
Either one of you happen to know it?
I don't remember. Right offhand.
Don't call Darryl a dog. Dogs run hard after balls and are loyal.
Oh man! Wow.
Actually, it was reversed. It was don't call Darryl a dog. Dogs are loyal and run hard after balls. That was Tommy's quote. And I was right there with him because, boy, he came out to L.A. and just became a druggie and just, it's a shame. I'm not trying to belittle drug addicts or anything like that, but, boy,
I know.
He was not the player they wanted, you know.
He went out there, he drove in 99 runs for the Dodgers, and he sat out the last 2 games of the season. And I'm over here in New Jersey going, what the hell is he doing? He's sitting out the last 2 games. He needs 1 more RBI for 100 RBIs.
Yeah.
I guess that's what drugs do, though. And
that was the only good season he ever had for him with those 99 RBIs. But anyway.
he really turned Lasorda off. Lasorda ripped him in the press. He ripped him.
He had a lot of problems back then, and it kind of irked me. He ended up with the Yankees and winning a World Series.
Yeah,
I know.
That kind of pissed me off.
It pissed me off when Doc Gooden pitched the perfect game for the Yankees.
Yeah,
that
right?
pissed me off, too.
I'll bet. But anyway, so before he left the Dodgers, Buzzie, that last year in 1968, was involved in a great draft that also Campanis and Fresco Thompson were involved in, and they brought in players with names a little more familiar, Linda. Steve Garvey, Davey Lopes, Ron Say, Bill Buckner, Bobby Valentine, Joe Ferguson.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Royal Alexander, among others. And then, now listen to this. Now, he went to San Diego, and they were horrible. You know, they finished last for, 6-7 years in a row.
Yeah.
But they did get Nate Colbert, Cito Gaston, and Ollie Brown right off the bat, and they were the mainstays of that team.
Yep.
And then he went to the Angels, where he was involved in their first 2 playoff teams, and was involved in getting Rod Carew, Reggie Jackson, who you remember he signed as one of the first free agents back in the day. Connie Lansford, Fred Lynn. I mean, these are big names.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they were.
He was really there for many, many years, bringing in some great players. So he had to know talent.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, he knew his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he knew his stuff. He did well. He had a fine career. He had a long career, a fine career. I want to thank both of you again for a great show and for your input. You did very well, and I want you to think about who you want to talk about next week and message me.
Sounds good.
I don't even have any hints for you, but you know, you want to throw a hint out there who we might want to talk about next week, or I know we talked about. Oh, by the way, the Leo DeRocher show and the Not Whole Gang show is going to be. Ralph said he's going to post that tomorrow.
Okay.
I was thinking we could talk. I think we should have a show on Walter Alston. What do you think?
Oh, I think
that's just talk about off the top of your head. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Walter Alston is a good choice, I think, because he has Brooklyn roots and he has Los Angeles roots.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
That sounds great to me.
Good idea?
Linda?
Very good. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do Walter Smokey Alston for next time. And again, I want to thank both of you. I want you to have a good night and a good rest of the week, and I'll be speaking with you soon. And for all our listeners, thanks for listening. Good night.
Always a pleasure.
All right.
It's a lot of fun. Take care.